Hi, welcome to the channel. Today is the first day of 17th chapter, that is how to use your subconscious mind for forgiveness. Let's start. Life plays no favorites. God is life, and this life principle is flowing through you at this moment as you read and think upon these words. God loves to express himself through you as harmony, peace, beauty, joy, and abundance. This is called the will of God or the tendency of life. If you set up a resistance in your mind to the flow of life through you, this emotional congestion will snarl up your subconscious mind and cause all kinds of negative conditions. God has nothing to do with the unhappy or chaotic conditions in the world. All these conditions are brought about by the negative and destructive thinking of your species. Therefore, it is a serious mistake to blame God for your trouble or sickness. Many persons habitually set up mental resistance to the flow of life by accusing and reproaching God for the sin, sickness, and suffering of mankind. Others cast the blame on God for their pains, acts, loss of loved ones, personal tragedies, and accidents. They are angry at God and believe He is responsible for their misery. As long as people entertain such negative concepts about God, they will experience automatic negative reactions from their subconscious minds. What they fail to understand is that they are punishing themselves. They must see the truth, find or release and give up all condemnation, resentment, and anger against anyone or any power outside themselves. Otherwise, they cannot go forward into a healthy, happy, or creative activity. At the instant these people entertain a God of love in their minds and hearts, at the instant they believe that God is a loving Father who watches over them, cares for them, guides them, sustains and strengthens them. This concept and belief about God or the life principle will be accepted by their subconscious mind, and they will find themselves blessed in countless ways. Life always forgives you. The life principle holds a bottomless fund of forgiveness for you. It forgives you when you cut your finger. The subconscious intelligence within you sets about immediately to repair it. The new cells build bridges over the cut. If you contract an infection from a harmful organism, life forgives you and sets about sounds and annihilating the invader. If you burn your hand, the life principle reduces the edema and congestion and gives you new skin, tissue, and cells. Life holds no grudges against you. It is always forgiving you. Life brings you back to health, vitality, harmony, and peace if you operate by thinking in harmony with nature. Negative, hurtful memories, bitterness, and ill will clutter up and impede the free flow of the life principle within you. How she banished that feeling of guilt. Harriet G. worked late at the office every day. She often did not go home until after midnight. She expected that her superiors and co-workers would pat her on the back because she worked so hard. They didn't. Since she was usually the only one who stayed so late, the other didn't even know about her unusual devotion. Meanwhile, her family life was in serious trouble. Her husband and two sons hardly knew what she looked like when her younger Since a little league team made the local playoffs, Harriet not only missed the game, she even forgot to ask who won. To top it off, Harriet's doctor warned her that she was developing dangerously high blood pressure. Harriet uh, came to talk to me after her husband told her he wanted a separation. I asked her why she shut her husband out of her life and showed so little interest in her voice. At first, she tried to say that she had to work so hard just to keep up with her job. I asked if her co-workers put in as much time as she did. No, she admitted. The others in her company kept pretty normal hours and they were not any better at the job than she was. I suggested to her why she was working so arduously. There is something eating you inside, I told her. If there weren't, you would not act this way. You are punishing yourself for something. For a while, she registered the suggestion. She kept trying to say that her working habits were normal, that other people were lazy. Finally, however, she admitted that she had a deep sense of guilt. 15 years earlier, after her father died, she had served as executor of the state. She had deliberately kept from turning over a large sum of money to her younger brother. Why did you do that? I asked. Was it a question of greed? Of course not, she replied. My brother, well, he had a terrible drug problem. I knew what would happen to the money if I turned it over to him. I told myself I was saving it for him, for when he caught himself straightened out, and I probed. Harriet took a deep breath. It never happened. He killed himself. Maybe he did not do it on purpose, but it came to the same thing. He was only 26. I keep thinking, what if I hadn't kept the money? Maybe he would have used it to go into some kind of rehab program. He might still be with us. It's my fault, he said. I asked her if you had it to do over again, what would you do? I don't know, she said, shaking her head. But I know I would try harder to help my brother instead of bearing down on him because he had a problem. But at the time, did you feel you were justified? I asked. Did you feel you were doing the right thing? Sure, she told me. But now I am sure it was wrong. That money wasn't mine. So you would not do it now? No, no, I won't, she replied. Her face grew stern, but that doesn't matter. I can never be forgiven for what I did. I stole from my only brother, and he died. It's only right that God should punish me. I deserve it. I explained to her that God was not punishing her, she was punishing herself. If you misuse the laws of life, you will suffer accordingly. If you put your hand on a naked charged wire, you will get a shock. The forces of nature are not evil. It is your use of them that determines whether they have a good or evil effect. Electricity is not evil. It depends on whether you use it to light up or your home or give someone a fatal shock. The only sin is ignorance of the law, and the only punishment is the automatic reaction of people's misuse of the law. If you misuse the principle of chemistry, you may blow up your workplace. If you strike your hand against a board, you may cause your hand to bleed. The board is not at fault. The fault lies with your misuse of it. Eventually, I helped Harriet realize that God does not condemn or punish anyone. All her suffering was due to the reaction of her subconscious mind to her own negative and destructive thinking. What she needed was forgiveness, but the true meaning of forgiveness is to forgive yourself. Forgiveness is getting your thoughts in line with the divine law of harmony. Self-condemnation is called hell, bondage, and restriction. Forgiveness is called heaven, harmony, and peace. The burden of guilt and self-condemnation was lifted from her mind, and she had a complete healing. The next time she had a checkup, her blood pressure had become normal. The explanation was the cure. A murderer learned to forgive himself. Arthur O. murdered a man in Europe many years ago. When he came to me, he was suffering from great mental anguish and torture. He believed that God must punish him for his terrible deed. I asked him what had happened. He explained that he had found out that his wife was having an affair. He had come upon them unexpectedly as he returned from hunting and shot the man in a moment of mad rage. The legal system did not take a very harsh view of his deed. He had to serve only a few months in prison. When he was released from jail, Arthur divorced his wife and immigrated to the United States. After several years, he met and married an American woman. He and his wife have been blessed with three lovely children. He has made a successful career in a field where he is in a position to help many people. His colleagues like and respect him. None of this seems to help him. All this time later, he still blames himself for what he did. After hearing Arthur's story, I explained to him that scientists tell us every cell of our bodies is replaced every 11 months, both physically and psychologically. He was no longer the same man who had committed murder, and he had not been for many years. Moreover, he had clearly transformed himself both mentally and spiritually. He was now full of love and goodwill for humanity. The person who committed the crime years before was long since mentally and spiritually dead. In refusing to forgive himself, Arthur was condemning an innocent man. This explanation had a profound effect upon him. He said it was as if a great weight had been lifted from his mind. He realized for the first time the inner significance of the following truth in the Bible. Come now, let us reason together. Saith the Lord, though your sins be as scarlet, they shall be as white as snow, though they be red like crimson, they shall be as wool. Isaiah 1 verses 10. Criticism cannot hurt you without your consent. A school teacher named Roman K. named Ramona K. came to me after a lecture. She told me that recently she had to give a speech. Afterward, One of her fellow teachers sent her a note full of criticism. She said that Ramona spoke too fast, swallowed some of her words, and couldn't be heard. Her diction was poor, and her text rambled. Ramona was hurt and angry. She felt deep resentment toward her critic and tried to avoid any contact with her at school. When I questioned her, Ramona eventually admitted that she deserved many of the criticisms. She was not experienced at speaking to an adult audience. She had been nervous beforehand, and afterward she was simply glad that she had gotten through it. That was the reason she had been so wounded by her coworkers' criticisms. It was as if somebody had blasted a toddler for not running fast enough when simply managing to walk was an amazing feat. As we talked, Ramona began to see that her first reaction had been childish. She came to agree that the latter was really a blessing and much needed corrective. She decided to perfect her lecture skills by signing up for a course in public speaking at a nearby college. In the meantime, she called up the writer of the note to thank her for her interest and input. How to be compassionate. What if the later Ramona received was totally incorrect? What if she had good reason to think that the criticisms of her speech were simply wrong? In that case, Ramona would have had to realize that something about her speech, whether its manner or its content, had upset the prejudiced superstitions or narrow sectarian beliefs of the notes writer. The problem would lie not with her but with the writer. To understand this is to take an essential first step toward compassion. The next logical step would be to pray for the other person's peace, harmony, and understanding. You cannot be hurt when you know that you are master of your thoughts, reactions, and emotions. Emotions follow thoughts, and you have the power to reject all thoughts that may disturb or upset you. Left at the altar. Some years ago, I was asked to perform a marriage ceremony at a nearby church. The young man did not appear. At the end of 2 hours, the would-be bride shed a few tears. She then said to me, I prayed for divine guidance. This may be the answer to my prayer, for he never failed. Her reaction was to reinstate her faith in God and all things good. She had no bitterness in her heart because, as she said, much I lost for it. I think this marriage must not have been a right action because my prayer was for a right action, not just for me, but for both of us. This young woman sailed serenely through an experience that might have sent another person into an emotional tailspin. Tune in with the infinite intelligence within your subconscious depth. Trust the answer as unquestioningly as you trusted your mother and father when they held you in their arms. This is the high road to poise and mental and emotional health. Okay, we will start It is wrong to marry. Sex is evil, and I am evil. In the next session, if you are new on this channel, subscribe the channel, press bell icon so that you will get notification about a new video upload. Don't forget to like and share. Thank you so much. Thanks for watching.